We'll be good.
You have to follow.
We're going to follow him. We're try to follow him. We was pretty alert. You never quite
I mean, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There is a problem. No. Hey, stranger there. Man, that's awesome. You're in. That's good. Are you? Project up in Hendersonville.
When I get up and make my announcements later, understand what anyway, what kind of
It's just a retail stuff. Graduated from high school here. I remember it all real well. He said, morning.
Welcome to the Brentwood Rotary Club. I am your honored president, Sarah Johnson. Thank you all, and I welcome everyone here as well as all of our guests and visiting Rotarians. Before we get started, I need to share some information with the club. It feels like we haven't really finished grieving for the loss of John Miles, and unfortunately another one of our club members has passed away this morning. Molly Chatterjee passed away from idiopathic lung disease. Roger and Rod went to see her. I believe Rod spoke on it last week and how she was doing. She had, over the last week, gone down dramatically, was in hospice, and so we don't have all the information yet, but I did want to share that with the club so that you knew. In honor of Molly and all she's done for Rotary, she's an Arch Clump Society member. She's been on the board. She's chaired many of our committees. She's passionate about the India grant. She's written 2 grants with Rotary International, raising several hundred thousands of dollars. And she's a major donor, and the list goes on. But in honor of Molly and her commitment to Rotary and doing good in the world, I ask that we have a moment of silence in her memory. Thank you. If you all would please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers. As we know more about visitations and funeral arrangements, we'll share it at that time. With that, I would like to bring up, we're going to have, our invocation is going to be led today by Jane Covington, and then our pledge and 4-way test by Warren Bryant. Jane?
Thank you, Sarah. Please bow your heads and pray with me. Dear Lord, as we enter this season of Lent, we ask for your guidance. This is a period of reflection and preparation for the most holy Christian holiday, the day your Son rose from his tomb after suffering for our sins to give us the greatest gift of all, eternal life. It is a time in which we acknowledge our mortality and prioritize actions that lead us closer to the cross above those that bring us personal gain or pleasure. And you tell us to do these things quietly, Lord, without seeking attention or acknowledgement. We ask that you help us to remember to do this all the time and not just during Lent. Please bless and guide all Rotarians who are united for the purpose of doing good works. It is in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the 4-way test of the things we say, do, and believe. First,
is it the truth?
Second,
is it fair to all concerned?
Third,
will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And fourth,
will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Jane and Warren. Our Happy Bucks today is going to be, I don't know, is Charles Grumman here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Charles, I can see you, okay. So Betsy is going to introduce our guest and visiting Rotarians, and then Charles Grumman is going to lead us in Happy Bucks.
All right, it's a beautiful day in Brentwood, Tennessee, and we're going to start welcoming our visitors with Roger Green.
I'm happy to have again John Kraft with me as a guest, and he's a potential Rotarian, Rotary member, and he and his wife will be living here with children and later in the spring. And he is the owner of the Austin Funeral Services. So please join me in welcoming John.
Yeah, I'm happy to introduce again to this club Jim Bond. If I'm not mistaken, Jim, I think was one of our speakers last fall or summer. I didn't check the time, but anyway, Jim's been a long-time resident of Brentwood. He and his wife have 3 children, all grown, and but been a good friend, and he, probably a lot of you guys know him, as do I. So glad to welcome you today to our luncheon, and hope you come back again.
All right, Jennifer Shepherd.
Thank you. I am proud to introduce my friend Kim Randall. She is on the staff for Habitat for Humanity. She's the Chief Development Officer.
Speak on that brand new shiny title.
And she's really passionate about what she does and helping people. And she's also really competitive when you're playing hard. So be with her.
Jim Horner.
Chit chatting over here. This is Rita Hugh Davis. This is going to be a theme because I'm the Leadership Brentwood Chair. She is part of Leadership Brentwood, class of 2020.
All right. We also have several visiting Rotarians today. So I'm going to start off with one of our regulars, Steve. He's back.
I'll do road reflection.
Okay, we're going to have Commissioner Nelson Andrews is here. And we have Kyle Music from Lebanon. So we're welcome you here today. I believe that's it. Did I miss anybody? All right. There you go. Time to have you guys.
All right. Where's my Frito truck? There it is. A few people I know who think I need magnification, but here's anyway. Quick note about Molly. Molly, of course, was at the Heritage. I think she lived there for 15 years. And my wife was in charge of healthcare over there, and so she and Molly were good friends, and they were, both Indians, and so they got along. Molly actually was an OBGYN at the hospital where my wife was born in Denver. Now, Molly's time preceded my wife's birth by just a little bit, so when we first figured this out, we were really hoping we were going to find out that Molly delivered my wife, but not quite. It was close, but it was not quite. We went over and visited Molly at Vanderbilt maybe 3 or 4 days ago, and she saw me, pulled me in, grabbed my hand. She was struggling to breathe, she couldn't say much, but she grabbed my hand, she said one thing. She said, when they build the hospital, promise me that you'll go visit it. That was it. She said they already have the land. That was all she said. So the only thing she wanted to tell me was that she was still thinking about Rotary. She was still thinking about the good that Rotary does and the good that Rotary could do. So I just think Molly was quite a person who had such a big heart for those who needed. She spent her whole life that way. I'm sure at the memorial service we're going to hear a lot more about all the work she did around the world in healthcare. So on that note, here we go. George Johnson's happy.
That's not a good description, but it's for Molly.
Oh.
Who's next? I should have done that at the end.
Well, let me just echo some of the same sentiments about Molly. Molly could be difficult. Molly spoke truth that sometimes we did not want to hear. Molly asked questions that sometimes made us uncomfortable. But Molly always pushed forward for the good of Rotary. What this club can do, this club can always do more. And this past week we celebrated the Rotary District $1 Million Drive. And let me tell you, Molly, as I think many of you are aware, was a very part of that. Molly gave not just her time, but she certainly gave of her resources. And she is a leader in this club and in this district in her giving to Rotary International. So here's Molly.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome my granddaughter, Caroline Rose, to the
world. She was born 6 pounds, 8 ounces this Wednesday. I am tickled pink grandpa.
Today's a real special day. I put $5 in. Now, last year, I put in $1 for every year that I've been married. Well, I checked today, and the only way I could do was put in that I was you and Rotary didn't want it. But if I make it till 7 o'clock tonight, I will have been married to the same wonderful lady for 67 years. Wow.
I was wondering who started that awful custom. 5 years ago, my wife and I were in the Galapagos Islands and celebrated our 50th anniversary 5 years ago. So here's $55.
You thought that was... I like this new tradition. Every year. Who's that? You over. Yeah. Here we go.
Okay, for those of you here that aren't lifelong friends, I'm Steve Hewlett, visiting from the National Rotary Club. 2 things. I was in West Tennessee, driving to a little town. There was a country church there, and it had a sign, remembrance in front of the church. It said, "Cross-eyed people have better vision." And the other thing I want to say is that my wife and I have quarantined our china cabinet.
Go through the audience.
Steve put in some more
I
money.
didn't get either one of those. Will you explain those to me? We didn't. Okay.
It's
Someone has to
a
explain
downtown
this.
Nashville joke. You have to
Who's
see
that?
that.
Here we go.
That's for Molly. I have no idea why, but a couple years ago when I joined this club, she kind of like would make me sit with her every week. And so for a while I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then other people were saying, hey, come sit at our table. I was like, sure, that'd be great. And then she would come over and get me and say, I saved a seat for you and I've been waiting. And I said, oh, that's so nice, thank you. So then I would politely excuse myself from the other table and say, I'm so sorry, Ms. Chatterjee has a spot for me over here, I'm going over there, and it was always at that table over there where they are right now. But anyway, fast forward. They had asked me to serve on a board here for some grants and different stuff. And, you know, there was some different things going on at the time. And she would approach me and say, hey, da-da-da-da-da, and say, listen, I'm just a newbie. I don't have any pull here, you know? And so she was really sweet. And she'd voice her stuff. And like I said, she just had such a heart for Rotary. So in honor of that, a couple weeks ago, she called me and said, hey, you know, how are you doing? What's going on? And I said, well, I haven't seen you lately. And she said, no, I'm in the hospital. So anyway, she said, I'm not a good public speaker, so forgive me. But she said, hey, she shared a few personal things, and I won't share those here. But anyway, during my time visiting her at the hospital, it was a very sensitive moment, and I just felt really bad for her. So anyway, that's in honor of Molly, and I think that she really did have a great heart, so that's good.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else? All right, Ms. President, I think we're done.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Betsy. Just because we continued talking about Molly a little bit, I just want to let the club know that I've already reached out to Rotary International and the foundation so that they're aware, as well as because we have a grant going right now. We talked about the global grant that got approved actually last couple weeks ago. And I've reached out to the coordinator between India and here and let them know that the foundation and the club are in discussions of finding who it is. They can't fill Molly's shoes. No one can with our initiative in India. However, hopefully we will have someone in place that can kind of step in and continue on with her work. So I just wanted to let you guys know. So Jane Covington has some announcements to make about Pancake Day.
One announcement. So as everybody knows, Pancake Day is the one club event that we do ask everybody to make every effort to participate in, just because it's so labor intensive for us, but it is a Brentwood tradition at this point, and so the community expects it and supports it. So we ask that everybody please make every effort to take a shift and help us out this year. The sign-up sheets will be on the tables starting next week, and earlier this week, the email went out with the online sign-up link. So just wanted to ask everybody to sign up early and often. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Also wanted to thank the club for your participation in the $1 Million Dinner. I think everyone saw that we raised, or the district raised $2.3 million. And of that, which is awesome, but this club raised approximately $383,000 of that goal from this club. So thank you all very, very much to help ensure that Rotary and the legacy lives on. So I really appreciate it. Also wanted to mention that Jared told you guys last week about the basketball goals at the Baptist Children's Home. But he was mentioning today, which I thought was fantastic, he actually on the goals has the Rotary emblem. So I thought that was a great way to let people know that, you know, Rotary's involved in different things we can. So thank you, Jared, for doing that. Also want to tell you another good thing. Guys, we are becoming a social media club. I am so excited. So, you know, Linus has done a great job with putting things on YouTube and Facebook and having a Facebook page. We also have an Instagram page. And then one of our new members, Jason Hulse, I want to give a big clap and thank you to, has created our own LinkedIn page. And it is, Jason, tell them the name, come on.
The Brentwood Noon Rotary Club.
So that's our, I know, right? Gotta give them a little credit, guys. I'm asking this club to go ahead and follow and,
I said all credit to Kip on the name.
Good job, Kip. Kip will tell you since we started at the board meetings I've been on, and hey Kip, we need LinkedIn. Hey Kip, we need LinkedIn. But hey, you got it together. I appreciate it. And what we're going to do with that is because LinkedIn is a business site that a lot of business people do, so we're going to start showcasing our speakers as much as we can before to announce who our speakers are, as well as afterwards a link to Facebook and a link to the YouTube video. That way we can start showing the things that this club does and the speakers we have and just kind of get it out to the world, so to speak. So thank you, Jason, very much. And with those types of platforms, if you guys could reshare them when you're on your sites, that would be wonderful because that's how we get the message out. With that, I am going to turn the meeting over to Jennifer Bourne to introduce our speaker. I know. It was a request. I have to own it.
Yes. All right. So today, our speaker is our very own Curry Andrews. And I sat and for all week I've been trying to figure out what to say because I wanted to be funny and witty, and I'm not funny or witty. So when I Google Curry, a lot of things come up about his business and his contributions to the city of Brentwood. But he asked me to introduce him, so I'm going to tell you a little story about the Curry that I remember and the one that I know. When I was 22 years old, right outside of college, I worked at Enterprise Car Rental. He doesn't even know that I know this, or we did not have this talk. But one morning I was over at Andrew's Cadillac, and a car had slid on ice and literally flew over the cliff onto a bunch of Cadillacs. Now, it was a very scary moment. I watched the whole thing happen. I've never seen two people run so fast out of the dealership to this woman and help her out of her vehicle. It said a lot to me about them Nelson and Curry. Their kindness, their compassion. When I took the lady back to the car rental company, she was crying, very upset, obviously, but she was so taken back by the kindness that was shown to them by the owners of the dealership. That said a lot to me about my first impression of Curry. Many years later, I got to sit next to him at the Brentwood Citizens Police Academy. I was we went from side by side, hellos from two acquaintances to after 10 weeks sitting together every Thursday night, class troublemakers. He's the troublemaker. I came along. And some of the others in this room were equally as troublemakers. Since then, despite all his many accomplishments here in Brentwood and his time in Michigan, to me, he is a kind, a generous person with a big personality. He is trouble, Trouble, which I tell him, and he's the Don King to Chief Hughes' Rocky Balboa, if y'all remember that. Please welcome Curry Anderson.
Jennifer, you made one mistake.
Uh-oh.
You were supposed to have had a seat belt for Larry so he won't fall off. Well, thank you. I appreciate being here. I love Rotary Club. I've been a member for a few years. Don't know if I need this. Do I need this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And move over a little bit, Curry. There you go. Perfect.
Nice socks.
Worried about me falling?
I wanted to mention a couple things. A few years ago, when Ricky Watson was the chief of police, and then I'll get into what we're talking about. He and I had lunch on Wednesday, and he knew I was going to give a talk the next afternoon to a group. And the next afternoon, I was running late, and I'm on the way, and I get stopped by a police car. And I didn't know I'd been set up, but I wasn't going, I might have been going a little fast, Jeff. And so he held me up a little bit, and then he let me go. And then Ricky called me later and said, ha ha. So I'm glad that you didn't do that to me, Jeff. Thank you. When Jennifer asked me to do this about a month ago, 40 years of business in Brentwood, you can imagine trying to encapsulate 40 minutes into a half hour or less. And so I sat there and I started going through all my, Jane helped me and we went through so many different things. And on so many of the pictures involved Larry. So I called Larry and I said, let's get together and see if we can put this together and have a fireside chat and just discuss a lot of different things. So he brings his big portfolio over and I bring mine over. And I had a thought. I called Deanna Lambert over at the city. I said, do you have any pictures and different things that we can use? Well, the difference between 40 years ago and now is a thumb drive. And I think there's more on that than what we were able to carry in. So, but in any event, appreciate being here. Give you a little history of my formative years. Grew up in Michigan, little town, about 4,000. My dad was a doctor. My mom was a nurse. And after high school, went to Albion College. And in my junior year, a friend of mine said, I want you to meet a person. And luckily, it was my first date with Jane Severs. And so we got along just great. And I finished up Albion in '59, Albion College, and then went to work at a cemetery, managed a cemetery and sold cemetery property for a year, enough to get money to go back to grad school. And Jane was finishing up at Michigan State with her degree, and we lived in married housing the last year at Michigan State. And after that, I got my first job with American Motors International and spent 2 years, didn't know what I was going to do, but they started sending me overseas. I would spend 8 to 10 weeks at a time traveling all through Europe, setting up military sales operations to sell Rambler automobiles to military personnel either on rotation over or up on rotation back, either there or coming back. And then after that, they sent me to the Far East, and we set up sales operations in Japan, Okinawa, Korea, and Guam.
Well, after 2 years of that, and Jane's teaching school all this time, teaching chemistry. Were you teaching home ec too? No. So I came back and after a while got a position with the Cadillac Motor Car Division. And spent a year in Detroit going through all the departments of Cadillac. And then they transferred us to Denver. And we were in Denver from 73 to 65 to 73. And we had 7 states that I covered as business manager, and really enjoyed that. Delson and Kelly were born in Colorado, and so we had a good time there. But in 73, Jane's dad had developed some illnesses, and he'd been an old Cadillac dealer starting in 1932 in Detroit. So we went back in 73 and bought the dealership and ran that, and took that from the 9th largest to the 3rd largest from 73 to 78, selling 800 to 1,100 new cars a year. And so they gave us the opportunity to relocate anywhere in the United States, and we looked at Florida and Denver and Ohio and Washington, D.C., and came to Nashville and fell in love with it. We thought it was a real opportunity. And we knew no one here, but we thought we'll take a risk and see how it works out. It worked out great from that standpoint. So, let me see. So when we came down here for the first time, we flew in, and Cadillac has what they call a metro area survey team. And they surveyed the area and said the best location to be is in Brentwood. Full transitional movement area will be south. So we looked around and went into Maryland Farms and found a place that we thought would be opportune for us. But before that, we would drive into Brentwood, and then there was a traffic light at the intersection of Old Hickory and Franklin Road. There was a 2-lane highway through, most of you know this, a lot of you, through Brentwood, and a lot of old buildings. And the first, whoops, go back to that one. That one, Larry and I tried to figure out who that was.
I think we know. I think we know who that is.
It's Sid Smith and who else?
I think that's Sid Smith and Elijah Reed.
Elijah Reed.
Some of the first people that worked for the Franklin Interurban, that's what that is. Good job, Sid.
So, but is Sid still here? So after that, you could drive down through Brentwood, and there were 2 restaurants. There was Noble's Restaurant, and then there was the Squire's Table. Was that the other one?
Across the street.
And that was it. If you wanted to have dinner, and there was nothing else available here, so it was a small town. I think Jeff Hughes was here now. So we enjoyed doing that. There was not much else going on, and then we on this gas station. I don't remember that. What was that? Pewitt?
That's Pewitt Brothers. That's where the current Exxon station is on Franklin Road. Pewitt Brothers for a long time, and Pewitt Drive, obviously named for them. So.
And when we went down Franklin Road to turn right on what is now Maryland Way, that was only a dirt road going down into Maryland Farms. And Maryland Farms, by the way, got its name because Truman Ward's wife's name was Larry. And anyone would ask him, who owns this land? He says it's Mary's land. So that eventually evolved into Maryland Way, or Maryland Farms. So, did I say that right?
What'd you use that road for?
That was our squeak and rattle road. Anytime we had a problem, it was probably the worst road in the city. And anytime we had a problem, we'd get down that and we could find out what the problem was. So, at that time, we arranged to purchase 7 acres in Maryland Farms, where we are now, and that evolved later on into about 11 acres there was, and now we're running out of room. I wish we purchased more, but we built the building there, and I just simply here. Oh, yes, I missed. Yeah, the House Food Town. Do we have that one? House Food Town was, other than the Kroger company, was the only other town, only other store in town. That was Mike Huff's dad. And here's a picture of Mike in front of his truck going back in. Is that right, Larry?
I think that's Glenn. That's his dad.
Okay. But Jane would go and get groceries in there, and Mr. Huff would say, do you want to put that on your bill? So then you could set up an account, and he was well known for being a kind man who, if anyone could not pay, he did not charge them. Right, Larry? So other than that, right next to it was, Jane and I had to go over and meet the city manager, Mr. Anderson, and the house you see up there now, this is a restaurant, Chinese restaurant, was the city offices. Mr. Anderson was in there, and Jane and I walked in, and at that time, it was so filled with things that for Jane to sit down, he had to pick something up off the sofa or off the chair and put it over on the jod. So she could sit down. That's a true story. So we got to know Mr. Anderson. He was a nice person. Right next to that, Brian, where's Brian? Was a volunteer fire department. Were you there then?
That's a picture of their new facility, isn't it?
Looks like Tuesday. Not up the road about those vehicles there.
Did you say Brian was the one on the left?
That's all the one you just If it is, I want to know where about 29 million went.
Now, Larry wanted to, we have a picture of Maryland Farms. And Larry's going to, with his pointer, is going to point out some things.
This is Brentwood 1979, just to get you oriented. This is Franklin Road right here going up, Church Street going near. That's the three original office buildings of Maryland Farms. There's Andrew's Cadillac. And if you look at that picture through a magnifying glass, there's about 10 cars there. So it's just open. This is what is now Maryland Farms. That's the Racket Club, and you can see the road went down there, ended right there. That was the end of Maryland Way at that point in time. Mary Bowles is down here in these trees. That was where the Ward mansion was, the Ward household, and their barns and things. This is right here down here in the lower right corner is the barbecue place on Franklin Road, which back then was First American Bank, which is where I started out here. That property right there is in Davidson County. The county line actually comes down through like this and then cuts across, and so that's all Davidson County. This building right here, Gil Walker, can you tell us something about that building right there?
Back in that period of time before Curry got here, I was president of Direct Oil Corporation. And my office was right on the corner of Franklin Road and what's now Maryland Way. Maryland Way came about in the city of Brentwood. There was some investors coming in, and they wanted to buy Maryland Farms before it was Maryland Farms. Okay? But they needed to have more width on the road at the corner of Franklin Road than what's Maryland doing now. The Baptist Convention had an office right there on that corner as well, but they didn't have any land. They couldn't do anything with it. We had 3 acres on the other side of the road, and I went to one of the meetings when they were talking about buying what's now Maryland Farms. But they had to have that width, or the deal was not going to work. They needed about 30 feet at the entrance. So I got with our corporate office in Houston and said, you know, we've got an opportunity here to really promote our company as well as helping the city as they're trying to grow and so forth. So anyway, they said, well, we can't just give them the land, but negotiate something that's reasonable. So I got back with them and I said, how does $2,300 sound? They agreed to do it. So if that amount of money bought 30 feet on our side of the road, we had 3 acres there. Without that, Maryland Farms would have never been there, okay? The road ended right at Mayor Bull's, as Curry was telling me. And being a little bit selfish, I lived in Bell Reeve subdivision, and it took me about 20 minutes to get to my office because I had to go around either on Old Hickory Boulevard or Burry Lane. That would take about 20 minutes or so. And I said, you know what? Our insurance rates in Bell Reeve subdivision in that part of Brentwood is extremely high, because the fire department can't get there in a lot of time. They have a certain amount of time for the fire department to react, that kind of thing. And I said, well, before the deal's closed on the width of the road, I'd like for you to make the road all the way to Granny White Pike. Instead of just Maryland Way stopping at Mayor Bull's, I want them to take it all the way to Maryland Way. It only took me about 8 minutes to get to my office there. But the insurance rates was the real driver. It was so high, but that would lower the rates considerably. And they said, well, we can't do it right now. I said, well, if you can't do it right now, we'll give you a year to extend the road. And they agreed to it. You know, they followed through, they put the road there, and that's kind of what happened with Maryland Way, before it was Maryland Way. And then Curry bought some land over there later on, and he and his wife came to my office and introduced themselves, and we could do corporate meetings and that kind of thing. And they did a very good job. And that time Maryland Way, my office building was right now, right on the corner of Maryland Way and Franklin Road. In Brentwood at that time, you couldn't buy a beer, a glass of wine, or anything else in the county. But down where Old Hickory Boulevard and Franklin Road was, there was a little restaurant, I think it was called The Carriage when I moved in, that was before church. But you had to go there to get a beer or a glass of wine or whatever. And it was really interesting.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
you. So in '78, I started, we were still living in Detroit, and we had contracted with Ken Stanville, who was building Fountainhead and River Oaks, and a good builder. So we met him, and he built our house in Fountainhead with Jane's help. She worked with him for about a year, and he built it on a handshake. If you can believe that. And we closed when we closed the paper when we closed. At the same time, we're building the dealership, and completed that in '79, and had a grand opening in '79. And a lady, I think Chuck knows, ran a marketing company at that time, and Marcia Blackburn took care of our grand opening. We got Ron Schuff and Franklin in to do the entertainment, and we had a grand opening. Thank you, Chuck. I don't know, were you there? I can't remember. Oh, yeah. I think we all were. So we opened up in September '79. Next 3 months, October, November, December, were really good. We averaged 40 new cars a month. And then January hit, and if all of you remember, in January, started. How long was the recession? Too long. The prime got up to 21.5% over the next, 2 years?
Yeah, a long time. Who built your building, Barry?
Oh, J.E. Crane. J.E. Crane built it, and with Louis Rankin. Louis here? No. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. So they built the building, and we've added on a few times to it, and are going to have another addition on here this summer. So after the recession hit, we had 12.5% unemployment. There weren't too many people interested in buying a car. So for the next 3 years, we did the best that we could to keep things going. And then in '81, George Miller was the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and Larry was supposed to be the president in '82, but he was the chairman. He was the chairman for the Redwood YMCA, and so our group raised money to help start that. And so he asked me, and I became president in '82 for the year, and then Larry became president in '83. So, but in 1982, there was a myriad of things that went on in the area. They widened Franklin Road and put new street lighting in, and Jane and Mary Lou Red went out and raised $12,000. They built a high school too, and that was completed. And Jane and Mary Lou Red went out and raised $12,000 so they could put what kind of trees were they?
October glory maples.
All through. So what you see all down past Road High School around the corner are all of the trees that they planted. And then We got George Miller and the group and had everyone on Maryland on Franklin Road paint our grand repair all the way down Franklin Road to make it a tree that we could be proud of. I can't remember how many were put in, over 300?
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
And they
All the way down, all we can do.
And they lasted, they were supposed to last 30 years, which is about what they did. So we worked that out, and then in high school, Paul Kingsborough was one of our neighbors in a group. When they put the field in for the high school football field, the group went out and they were building the stands for the stadium. You know that they couldn't do that today, right, Mike? So I don't know what happened after that. I think everyone looked the other way, but they put the stands in, not large amount, but they did a good job of that. And see if I forgot anything else here. So when you turn 80, you got to remember everything once in a while. And the Rotary Park that we know now is Granny White Park. Our group went by there one day and noticed that they were going to sell that, and it was the Tennessee Cattle Breeding Farm at that point. So we contacted the city, and they ended up buying it, and luckily they did, because it turned out great, didn't it? So, but right about that same time, well, one thing I have to go back on, in '79, we hadn't even moved here yet in the spring, and we were going to the Methodist Church, and they were telling us that weekend that the Rotary Club was having their very first pancake breakfast behind the church. So we bought tickets to go to it, and it poured the night before. And when we went in the tent, and I walked in, and they had 2 by 12s on the ground, and everyone going in there got soaked right up to your ankles. They were. But it said about somewhere later that they made $1,000, Larry. You made that. That's good. They used all tickets.
1979, that's good.
75. 79. So then we had the Pear Fest, and we started after that, after the church were planted, had a Pear Fest raising money for the high school library, and did a good job of that. I don't know if you have a picture of that.
Yeah, it's coming.
Oh, you want to say something about this one, Larry?
This was the Chamber Banquet, and Curry was sworn in as the president. Ron Terry, who was the chairman of First Tennessee Bank, Drew's gone, didn't he? Oh, you're there? Ron Terry was president of First Tennessee Bank, and so he came to give our presentation that night. He stood up in front of me, everybody clapped, and he said, you know, it's wonderful to be here in Hendersonville and see how well everything is going. That was a downer.
So right after that, Bob Bellington approached me at the dealership. He said, I want you to be my ticket seller. So I started selling tickets for the Western Memory for about another 3 years, because he wanted to keep me on selling tickets to make him #1, which is great. But then we did that for 3 years, and let's see, what else do I have there? Robert Fiddler. Is Robert here?
Put that picture back up. Tell them about this picture, Curry.
Oh, sorry.
Wait a minute, go back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
What's that on your head, Larry?
This was something the Chamber did to honor the music folks in Brentwood at that time. And now you look back on that, and that's some pretty big names. Of course, you recognize Eddie Arnold and Little Jimmy, and that's Ronnie Robbins, Marty Robbins' son. And then Grant Turner, of course, who was the king of WSM. So that was a pretty big event, well attended, and Curry chaired that. It was a really neat thing for Brentwood to have those folks come out to our chamber.
Larry, that's back when you had a greenskeeper for your head, wasn't
It's all in love, boys and girls.
This is what George Miller started the Pear Fest in '84. And, again, all that money went to the High School Library. So, we have another picture.
One more.
One more. Oh, we can't do that. We can't do that. I got to mention one other thing that, because we only have a few more minutes here, but Nelson and Kelly moved here with us in '79 and into our house. And then he and Kelly both went to Vanderbilt, graduated from there, and he went off on his own for 4 years, came back, and started working at the dealership again, and got his executive MBA at Vanderbilt. And he is now majority owner of our Andrews Transportation Group, which last month was counted as the 40th largest out of 300 in the United States. So that is attributable to the fact that we have now 130 people, and we've had the philosophy forever of, there's so many dealerships and businesses have troubles having, you see dealership ads open until 9 o'clock and all day Sunday, all day, every day. And our philosophy has always been we close at 6 o'clock every night. We want our employees to go home and have a good dinner. And we alternate Saturdays, and we'll never open on Sunday and never have. So it's just something. 130 people, Nelson, correct me, but I think about half of them have been there over 20 years. And our longest one is Kenny, whose wedding I went to. We came here, and he's been with me 40 years. Been with us 40 years. But we all treat each other. Nelson knows everyone at the dealership. I know everyone. We walk around with some dealerships in the United States where the dealer never goes up, seriously, out of the shop because he doesn't want to get grease on his shoes. But we've had the reverse psychology in doing that, and it's really worked out well. We take care of your people, and they do the best job. So Brentwood is what it is today because of so many people volunteering. We've got such a great group. The Rotary Club, I love them. It's a fantastic group. Even Larry, Susan. So I thank you for letting me talk. Larry, do you want to say anything? Any more?
No, I think you've just to say, I've known Curry the whole time, and he's touched on about 10% of the stuff that he's done. I mean, you could name the Boys and Girls Club and nieces here of how active he's been in that. And he's given himself to our community just willingly. And, I know a lot of car dealers, and I don't know many of them that get out of their office very often, but Curry's out all the time, and he's done that for a long time. Put that last picture up real quick. Can you get it?
I just got my 7th diamond for being a 35-year member of the Boys and Girls Club, right, Denise?
Yes.
Anybody know who this is? That's exactly right. Leukemia Society Celebrity Waiters Luncheon, 1985-ish or 4-ish or something. And in those days, they challenged the celebrity waiters to do certain things, and somebody challenged Mr. Freeman to drink and eat a goldfish. And he did.
Thank you. When you leave, you can see some of the pictures that Larry and I took out of our files to put outside. It's kind of fun to look at, but like I said earlier, it's kind of hard to put 40 years into encapsulated 30 minutes, and that's why you have to look back. There's a few other things we could have said that were very complimentary of the city, but it's like the geometric axiom, the whole is equal to sum of the parts, and every one of us here is involved in that equation. So thank you.
Curry, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all you do. Thank you for the Rotarian you are, as well as, more importantly, things that you do for your community and everyone around you. You're impactful, and we just love you, and we appreciate it. And I could listen to you all day.
May I say one more thing?
Of course you may.
When we first joined Rotary years ago, in '87, I think it was, sometime or other, they let the newbies get up and say something about themselves at that point. And when we got through, BrentwoodRotary gave me a key to the jail. True story. Jeff, what are you giving me, a ticket?
I'm going to give you a hard way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our guests and visiting Rotarians for joining with us today. And if you wouldn't mind, if you would help please clean up by putting our tables up and our chairs to the side. I really appreciate you all being here. Curry, thank you so much once again. And Larry, thank you for being his fellow sidekick. We really appreciate it. And there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, my favorite part.